Hello, all. Welcome to another episode of Anju Speaks Tech. In this episode, we shall discuss the range partitioning in YugabyteDB. In YugabyteDB, range partitioning works in a similar way like Postgres. So, let's get started. What is range partitioning? Range partition means a table is partitioned based on some range. There is a lower range which is inclusive and an upper range which is exclusive in the definition of the partitions. Now, this every partition is a combination of two concepts. One is the parent table and one is the child table. Now, the partitions are basically, when we say partition, it basically refers to the child tables, but also we have a parent table. Now, this parent table doesn't hold any data. All the data are available in the child tables. If we take a look at a sample syntax, the parent table looks like something that I have mentioned in the slide. That is create table, table A, and there are a couple of columns. Then constraint primary key column A, comma column B, and that table is partitioned by range against column B. Now here, one point to note is you have to keep the column against which you are trying to do this partitioning. For this case, range partitioning, you have to include that column in your primary key. Otherwise in unique constraint. Now, syntax for the child table, it looks like this: that create table, table B, partition of table A for values from range A to range B. Here I would like to reiterate that range A is inclusive and range B is exclusive. So, in this episode, we will try to see some scenarios. I have listed five of them. So, we will just try to see what happens with the scenarios or how to deal with these scenarios. So, let's try that out one after the other. And for this, I have my Cloud Sandbox where I have installed YugabyteDB version 2.25.2, which is the latest one available till the time of recording of this video. Okay, so let me first show you that what I have done is I have created a local cluster with a replication factor of 3. Now here I will check the status. You can see that there's a replication factor of 3. Node count, it's 3, though it's basically the local system only. If you can see the address, that is one is 127.001, then 002 and 003. Okay, there's a local cluster with a RF factor, replication factor 3. Now let me connect to the database, default database. So default database is Yugabyte, but I have created a test database where we will do all our stuff. So here, if I check the schemas, we have only public schema. So just to make things, keep things similar, I mean easy. Okay, so we will do all this stuff within this public schema as well. So let's get back to that slide and let's try to look at the first scenario. The first scenario is you have tried to create a table with partitions, but have not kept the partition key as a member of the primary key, the one that I told while describing the range partition. Let's see what happens. Okay. So here, few things to note. First of all, you can see that I have mentioned split into one tablets. Why I have done this? Because if you are familiar with YugabyteDB, you know that tables are being split into tablets in YugabyteDB. But here the thing is, as I mentioned, that the parent table does not hold any data, so there is no point of creating multiple tablets. So that's why I specifically mentioned it split into one tablets. But surprising to note that split option on a partition table will be ignored. So that is a new feature that has been introduced in 2.25, that even if you try to mention that for a parent table that split into n number of tablets, it will ignore that. So instead of one, if I could have used say 5, 10, 15, 20, so it will just ignore that for parent table, not for child table. Please note that it will ignore it for parent tables. Now the next thing, that error is, like we discussed, that unique constraint on a partition table must include all partitioning columns. But here what we have done is that though in this primary key we have mentioned that product and batch ID, but then we try to partition it against batch date. Now, batch date is not available in primary key, though this is a composite primary key, but we haven't kept it as a column inside that composite primary key, or we haven't explicitly included it as a unique constraint. So that's why it says that primary key constraint on table product details lacks column batch date. So it's good to see that it also hints that okay, you have to include batch date, which is a part of the partitioning key. You have to include it, and then you will be able to create a table successfully. Now let's try that as well. So now for this case, you see that the table has been created, and though the first warning, that is split options, here also it is ignored. Now if I just describe this table, you will see that the columns are available, and here it says that it is number of partitions is 0 because we haven't added any child tables. This is basically the parent table, and now in next few scenarios we will definitely see that how we can add child tables. So, scenario one, we have seen what we have to do. We have to include the partitioning key in the primary key, or we have to mention it explicitly as a unique constraint. Now, let's check the scenario number two, that you have not created any child table, but you try to insert records. Now here we see that we have not created any child tables because the number of partition it shows at 0. Now what we will try to do is we will try to insert a record. Okay, there is a syntax error. Let me try to fix that quickly. Yes. So now you can see that it shows that no partition of relation product details found for row. So as I mentioned that the parent table does not hold any data. All data resides inside any of the other child table. Now here we don't have any child table as of now, so that's why it shows an error. Now let's check the scenario number 3. Now you need to create multiple child tables. Now this time we will create few child tables as well. Now just look at the latest SQL statement that I've executed. I've written create table, then product details June 2024 because I just thought to create a partition of June 2024. That there is a child table of the main table. The main table name is product details, and the values are from 1/6/2024 to 30th of June, because as I mentioned in my slide that the upper range, that is 1/7/2024, that is exclusive. So always it will consider the date less than uh, uh, the one that you mentioned in the upper range. And here it's another thing that you have to look at, the split into 5 tablets. Though we have mentioned that it should be split into 5 tablets, but it doesn't show any warning that it is ignoring that, because as I told you earlier that it only ignores for parent table, but it considers it for child table. Okay, so now let's check the product details once again. Earlier the number of partition was 0, but now after this, after creation of the latest child table, you can see that under partitions we see that table name. So likewise, if you want, you can create child tables for other months as well. Now let me create another one. This time let's try to do it for July. So here just I will change the date. Yes, I've done the same. Now let's check the product details. I'm describing that product details, the parent table once again. And now you see that we have two child tables. Now, coming to scenario number 4, you need to update values of the partition key. Now, before that, we have created only child tables. We have not inserted any records to any of them. So, first we have to insert some records. Let's do that first, and then we will come back to scenario number 4. Yes, so now It has been inserted. Now if we want to check that, okay, for June months, it should have the child table of June month should have two records, and child table of July should have one record. Let me quickly check that as well. So let's start from, see, for June it only shows two record, and if I check for July, it should show me one record only. Yes, so for June two records, for July only one record, total three. So now I like to update one of the records from June to July. Now, how will I do that? Because that is what our objective is. We need to update the value of the partition key. So now we have updated one record. We have updated the batch date, which is basically the partitioning key, as 0207-2024. We have also changed the batch description, where the product ID was 100 and batch ID was 1001. Now here you need to check that the product ID was 100 and batch ID was 1001. Earlier it belonged to June, but now after this update, if we again go and check the June month's partition, we will see only one record. Why? Because the moment you update that record, now it has transferred from June's child table to July child tables. So that is why if I now check the July's child table, it will show, yes, two records. So the moment you change the partitioning key values, the record shifts from one to other. Now, the last one. That is, you want to create a partition for which you already have records in default partition. Now, default partition, it's generally recommended to create at the time of creation of any partition table, though we haven't created here in the first at the first hand. Why? Because, okay, I mean, intentionally I have not created because I wanted to uh, discuss this scenario. So that's why now we will create a default partition. Now what default partition does is, you have multiple child tables with different ranges, but if any of the records that you are going to insert in any of the child tables, if it doesn't fall in any of the child tables ranges, automatically there is a default table which acts as a kind of backup to hold that data, so that from the application side you don't see any error. If you want to insert a record, so that insertion will be successful, it will not show an error. So now first let's create a default table. Now how to create, it's similar to any other child table. Sorry, again, syntax error. Oops, why it is one. Now first we will create a default child table. Yes. So now a default table has also been created. So now you see that we have two child tables and one default table, makes it total three. Now let me insert one data, which is already we have created child tables from June and July. Let me insert one from August. Sometimes this date quotation in date creates some problem on CLI. Let me manually type this. Yes, inserted. Now, if we check, obviously in June and July it has not been inserted. So where it has inserted, it should be inserted into the default child tables. Select star from product details default. See, so now we have one record in default child table. Now next step is, as I mentioned, let's go back to the scenario that you want to create a partition for which you already have records in default partition. Now we have inserted one record in default, that date belongs to August. Now this time I will try to create another child tables of August. Let's see if if I succeed, if I get a success in creating that child table or not. So earlier I created, just I'm going back to that create statement. Earlier I created child tables. See, so this is for July. I will just change it to August. It shows an error. It says that updated partition constraint for default partition would be violated by some row. Why? Because we have one record that belongs to August and which is available in default. That is why it shows this error. Now, how to get rid of such situation? To get rid of such situation, what we will do is, first we will create a table which is just like the main parent table, but we will not create it as a child table. First we will create it as a standalone table, but we will include all the columns and constraints available in that parent table. So here we are trying to create that table. The table has been created, but please note that this is a standalone table. We have not added it to the parent table. If you want to check, I can show that to you as well. See, for product details, still we have total three: June, July, and default. We have not added August. We have created, if you check DT, we have created product details. August is there as a table, but it's a standalone table. Now, what we will do is, we will insert the data of the default table to this standalone product table details August 2024. So now the data has been inserted. We can check that as well. Select star from product details August 2024. Yes. Now, as the data has been copied to product details August 2024, now we will delete that record from the default. Deleted. Now it has zero record. So my data is now residing, the August month's data is now residing in a standalone table. Now after that, we have to just attach it to the parent table. And automatically it will become a child table of the parent table, that is product detail. Now let me oh again uh, 2024 0801. Here also let me change this as well, otherwise it may again show. Yes. So what I have done is I have done this alter table product details, that is the parent table. Then I have attached its standalone table, that is product details August 2024, which is until now acting as a standalone table, but now we have attached it to the main parent table. After this, if we try to check, let me describe the main parent table. Here now you will show that a new partition table, that is a new child table, has been added to the parent table product details. Now we have total 4, earlier we had 3. So now for scenario number 5, if you want to create a partition for which you already have records in default partition, what you need to do is first you need to create a standalone table. Then you have to just move the records which are causing issue, which is available in the default partition and causing issue. You have to just copy it to that standalone table. Then you delete them from the default table, and then you attach it to the main table. So that's all. These are the 5 scenarios that we have discussed in range partitioning. So if you have liked this video, please do subscribe, like, share your comments, and share with your peers and colleagues. And to know more about databases and other technologies, stay tuned to Anju Speaks Tech. Thank you.